Hello, I'm Murdell McFarland, and welcome to Potpourri. Our guest today is Mr. Terry Emeka Thomas.
Yeah.
Mr. Thomas is the recipient of a national award for Black History and Culture from the National Education Association, as well as an award from the Association for the Study of African Life and History. We're very happy to have him with us today. This is our second opportunity to sit and talk about your career and talk about what's happening in our country and what has happened in our country in the areas of civil rights and also in the advancement of African culture across the diaspora as well as around the world. So I'm going to take a few minutes right now and hope that you will indulge me with a reading of Mr. Thomas's accomplishments and his activities over the last 30 years.
Yes.
Presently in the South. He's had an interesting and very amazing career, and we are very happy to have him with us this afternoon. He's a cum laude graduate of Morris Brown College. He holds a degree in art education and a Master of Arts in African American Studies from Clark Atlanta University. In addition, he's taught fine arts and journalism for 20 years in the Palm Beach County, Florida school system. As a cultural arts advocate and community organizer, he founded the African American Cultural Art Organization, AACAO, a nonprofit 501c3 entity dedicated to the enrichment of the Black and broader communities. Under his leadership, the AACAO implemented Kwanzaa, Black history, Pan-African, and multicultural activities and Black consciousness. The AACAO presented national personalities to the community by presenting such cultural icons as Dr. Malana Karinga, Dr. Joseph Baldwin, and Dr. Naim Akbar. Through this rigorous regimen of Black consciousness, Mr. Thomas became a cultural icon in the state of Florida in the 1980s and the 1990s, and in the early part of this decade. Mr. Thomas was presented a certificate of excellence and in art, and his students' artwork was selected to be published in a national publication. For many years now, Mr. Thomas has been involved in raising the consciousness of Africanism, of African cultural contributions to our society, and to the civil rights issues that are facing us in the southern parts of the United States specifically. He's worked very diligently in the city of Atlanta with the Atlanta Public Schools and with other government and state organizations to try to increase the awareness and appreciation for the cultures that are non-white in our communities, to enrich the respect that enriches our nation and with the multicultural views and opinions of all of us that occupy the same space. So if we could just go from there and hear a little bit more about the things that you're engaged in. I know you have a statement that you want to share with us.
Yes, I was so inspired by our last conversation that weekend, and I thought to myself, what do I really want to convey? So I came up with this statement encompassing my scholarship and activities. I'm going to read it to you. The Occupy Wall Street movement pointed out that the 1% or powers that be work and strategize daily to maintain their status as controllers of American and world society. The mass media, theology, religions, education, and miseducation, as Dr. Carter G. Woodson, founder of Black History, would say, socially engineer the pecking order of economic and social stratification of the haves and the have-nots. Politics is a tool or vehicle by which the 1% control the ebb and flow of social change in America. Institutionalized racism, like scholastic and academic racism, is equally as bad. On the surface, white police shooting Black boys, men, and women is symptomatic of endemic race prejudice, but the crimes of omission in Hollywood, and American history textbooks, film, and television industries are just as suppressive and brutal as Eric Garner being choked to death right before the world's very eyes, and justice turning a blind eye on his murderers. Just as 19th century black abolitionist David Walker, author of David Walker's Appeal, was murdered by whites, his pamphlet is omitted from an American history text. So too is the image of black manhood murdered in academia. An American Greco-Roman theoretical framework of civilization as propagandized by the European and American education systems are soaked in our brains. Kemet, or black African Egyptian culture, is obfuscated by the fields of Egyptology and Western religion, namely Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. White supremacy and black inferiority is a design or socially engineered form of racial justification of slavery, Jim Crow, and continuation of the 1% as controllers of the white American world order. The truth about the age of the universe, Earth, and humans in relation to the evolution of culture is sacrificed for false indoctrination of how civilization came to be. Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop of Senegal, in his dissertation and book, scientifically outlined the African origin of civilization in 1954 at the University of Paris, the same year NAACP lawyer Thurgood Marshall and his colleague won Brown versus Board of Education. I wrote that because you inspired me to think deeply about where we are as a people and where we're going as a nation, considering the political climate with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton going head to head. So let's unpack it.
You're saying that the status of African Americans today in America is what troubles you under the political stage that we're on right now of Donald Trump and Mrs. Clinton running for president. Could you expound on that a little more? What's so different now than it was when President Obama ran?
Like President Obama during this administration, the emphasis has been on Latinos, gays, lesbian, and transgender, Native Americans, and aside from my brother's keeper, not much has been said about blacks. In this campaign, not much has been said about black until Black Lives Matter forced the issue on Bernie Sanders and Mrs. Clinton and Mr. Trump. So I applaud the young people for forcing the issue of the interests of the black community on the political, on a national level.
Well, I understand that, but as we look at this political process as it's playing itself out and the role that African Americans appear not to be playing in this campaign, is there at any point a responsibility of the African American communities? Because I think the homogeneous assumption that we all think alike, we're all on the same page, is probably been more of a detriment to our growth and development as a people than not. What role should we be playing to make ourselves more visible on the national stage and our issues of unemployment and poverty and crime in African American communities across the country? What should we be doing to promote ourselves in a more visible posture?
As an activist, I am involved in 8 different projects, including Concerned Black Clergy and Joseph E. Lowery's People's Agenda. I think we should turn on or turn up the volume on our activism and demand that certain things happen with our young people. And now that we have Black Lives Matter, connect, have an intergenerational movement.
Now, are you saying that we should employ nonviolent protest techniques that have been tried and proven over many years?
Absolutely.
And activate more protests, more visibility? What specifically, what kinds of activities would, in your opinion, would bring us more to the national stage, the attention of the nation and the country and the world? What should we do?
Right here in Atlanta and the state of Georgia, we have a governor who's committed to taking over public education. And there's a coalition, and I'm a member of the coalition, there's one of the 8 projects, to stop Governor Deal from taking over public education in the state of Georgia. Public education is under assault nationally from the Republican agenda. And ALEC and the right-leaning groups that want to privatize public education and ruin and depose the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education. And a lot of it is, black people have to think based on the lottery or the lottery system. In Georgia, we have a lottery system that is sponsored and selected by the governor. He picks the lottery advisory board. I was at a meeting of the Legislative Black Caucus downtown at the Dome, and the officials from the lottery came to speak to the Legislative Black Caucus. Turns out, none of the advisory board members are black. They're all white. Billions of dollars going into education in the state of Georgia being controlled by a governor who elected an all-white lottery board, and there should be outrage from the Legislative Black Caucus. I was more outraged than they were.
Did you speak with any of them to sort of gauge why they had no opposition or chose not to voice opposition to the makeup of that lottery board?
I didn't right away because I was so caught up into seeing the process. But now that I've had time to analyze it, I am going to talk to Representative Mabel Thomas, and
all right. Okay.
She seemed to be the most
vocal in that.
Vocal and genuine.
That's very interesting that you're looking at Representative Thomas to have a conversation with her. There may be others that you may want to have further conversation with, but we can talk about that in just a moment. Please stay tuned. We'll be back very shortly with more of Potpourri and Mr. Terry Thomas.
So good to see you guys.
So, what's up? Oh, we finally bought a place.
Holy cow.
You seriously have enough saved to do that?
We've been putting a little aside each month.
Jeez, at the end of the month, we have nothing left to save.
Yeah, I have no idea where it goes.
Well, you're spending a lot on...
Was it good?
Oh, God.
Oh, how is my account overdrawn?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
Welcome back to Potpourri. We're having a conversation with Mr. Terry Thomas, an activist and a very astute gentleman who has a lot to say about a lot of issues going on in our community. A moment ago, Mr. Thomas, we were talking about the makeup of the lottery board and your concern that there's no minority representation. You mentioned that you are going to talk to
Mabel
Thomas, because you feel that she has that sensitivity to that matter and may be able to help you bring more light to the need for greater diversity on that board?
Absolutely, because Georgia is 30 to 40% black. If it's 10, give us 3 or 4. If it's 20, give us 6 or 7. Black, I don't like using the word minority. But
along that line, though, I noticed, I'm just wondering, your concern is the way the school system's operated now. Apparently, there is a great call for change and for a renovation of our public school system. Outside of a takeover by the state, Do you have any recommendations which could be used or strategized then to change or improve the quality of education, our public education system, without state intervention?
Restore the funding. Under Governor Deal, $8 billion has been cut from public education. Much of it based on Governor Deal's view that something has to be done. Well, if something has to be done, restore the $8 billion.
And what areas were cut with the $8 billion that was taken away?
That was taken out of the budget of education.
Right, I mean in particular areas of education, facilities or actual classroom support materials, those funds were cut?
I don't have a breakdown of what
the cuts were.
Of that.
Okay. So if the government, if the state does not take over public schools, and let's say funding is restored, are you then saying that the public school administrators and superintendents around the state would then be in a position to improve public education?
I think so. If you deal with local control of community schools and teacher with shared decision making. I was a teacher for 20 years and very much involved in my union, and shared decision making with the administration is the way to go. And parents, the Parent Teachers Association needs to get more engaged in what's going on, because at the parent level it's very important, because parents in wealthy areas have the time and the resources to come and volunteer time, donate supplies. I was an art teacher. And my parents in poor areas work 2 and 3 jobs and have very little time to invest in their child's education, but a conscientious parent will. Well,
now how do you reconcile that? I have to ask you that.
Okay.
If parents in poor neighborhoods don't have the time because they have to work 2 and 3 jobs or 3 and 4 jobs to keep their families going and healthy and safe, where's the time supposed to come to? You just said, but more diligent parents. Isn't it pretty diligent to work 2 and 3 jobs?
It is. It is.
So if the time's not there for me to attend a meeting, and because I'm working 2 or 3 jobs, the time's not there, whether my heart is there or not, right?
Right.
So if we can't use that route, then more parental involvement and more parental engagement in the schools and more parental financial support is really a factor. You're saying that is there in the more affluent homes, but not in the neighborhoods of the poor. Isn't it sort of a hopeless? I mean, what you can't get blood out of turnips.
Well, you know, that reality is one of the reasons I decided to retire from education. The political and the economic and social variables, for instance, in my wealthy area where I taught, my budget for art supplies was $4,000, plus what the business community could contribute. In my poor areas where I taught, my budget for supplies for art supplies on an annual basis for the year was $200.
There's definitely a disparity in the financial.
Absolutely.
And as long as that disparity is there, can really anything else be done that can make a real difference if there's no money to make it happen?
Main thing is to recognize the disparity, the gulf of disparity.
You think there's a lack of recognition?
I think so. And be more affirmative. I know people don't like to hear the word affirmative action, but be more affirmative to those social variables in those poor, high crime areas, and use a social experiment or engineer help and assistance to those parents through the PTA, the Parent Teachers Association, and the local teachers union.
How can the teachers union be of help in this area?
Well, the teachers union is aligned with the Parent Teachers Association and grassroots organization to facilitate, help, and infuse a sense of humanity that is not always present in governmental apparatus.
You mentioned that you're a member of organizations that have, you have a total of 8 different kinds of activities and agendas going on at this time. Do any of these agenda items focus on improving public education without state takeover?
Absolutely. I'm with the Education Committee of both the Concerned Black Clergy. I chair the Black History Committee, and Joseph E. Lowery's People's Agenda. They're both concerned with the status of education and the November 8th vote or referendum to hand over power to the governor. So they are both in a strong opposition of it, both the Concerned Black Clergy and Joseph E. Lowery's People's Agenda. And we have the Stop OSD, Stop Opportunity School District Coalition, as well as Morris Brown Focus Group.
Now, these organizations are working to improve, like the flow of funds, or increase the funds that can be put in low-income schools by community groups and through PTAs to help take care of that disparity or eliminate that the difference between the wealthy schools and the disparities that exist?
They support that agenda.
So when you say they support that agenda, do they have activities and plans to help increase the economic stability of the poor schools?
The plans are advocacy for the schools in the neighborhoods, whether it's a book drive or whether it is to increase scholarships in those areas. Scholarships
for college?
Yes.
Oh, okay, for the children. What about summer programs? Are you aware of any summer programs we could probably share today with our public that's available in some of these communities, or groups that may be working on initiatives to help kids throughout the summer be better prepared for school in the fall?
Hank Stewart, I don't know if you know Hank, but he's with Joseph E. Lowery's People's Agenda. He's also with the Brothers Keepers, President Obama's initiative. Does a lot.
Could you talk about that a little bit more, the Brothers Keepers program?
I know that I can't be specific as I should be, but I know that it is designed to help young people in an upward mobile fashion towards college.
Okay.
And career choices, and remodeling the image of education and intelligence, where it's not only fashionable, but sexy to be intelligent, as opposed to a thug.
Well, that's very interesting. And it's good to know that there are organizations in our community that are actively working to improve the conditions of our schools in poor neighborhoods. I'd like to get back to your concerns regarding state takeover. And if monies have been already $8 million, you said, removed from $8 billion removed from the state budget for public education, I'm trying to connect if the governor or the state has removed money but are advocating for state takeover, would that not require more funds to be able to better manage the schools, public schools in the state under state takeover than what's already been taken away?
That would require a total rearrangement of management of personnel.
What would that look like, just for example?
We don't know. The teachers will be under the control and thumb of the state superintendent and governor. The unions, for all practical purposes, will be busted. The charter agenda that Atlanta Public Schools is so excited about will be front and foremost, and privatization, because the national Republican agenda is privatization of public education and destruction of the Department of Education.
So you're saying there'd be no more superintendent of schools and no more local school boards?
Control,
no local school boards. Mm-hmm. And the drawback to that compared to the way the situation is now, the way the system is set up now and structured, you do have local control?
More so.
More so than you would have under the state. Haven't we always had local control?
Yeah, that's a tradition. This is something new. They tried it in Louisiana.
How did it work there?
In New Orleans, it was basically a failure.
Are they still operating under that system, or they've changed back?
I think they're changing back.
Changing back to local control. So is there a solution? If state control is not the answer, and privatization is not the answer, what's the answer to improve our schools?
Support community schools, support teachers and students in public education. That is the answer. Public education is the main highway towards self-actualization and fulfillment as a citizen in this country. I came from Wilcox County, Georgia, and back in the day, I picked cotton.
Really?
Mm-hmm. My mother and father had 12 kids, 9 boys and 3 girls, and we picked cotton, loaded watermelons, and all type of field work.
Did you own your own farm?
No, we were field hands.
Oh, okay.
And my escapism was Marshmallow College and music.
Mm-hmm.
I came to play with the band. I ended up in art, but the public education I received, I didn't have to take any remedial classes in English or math or anything. So the rural South Georgia, Wilcox County High, where I graduated in 1975, provided the foundation for me being on the doctoral level right now.
Would it not require, and I know our time is running out now, but this is a topic for another day, but would it not require an expansive rejuvenation and very focused, aggressive efforts for local control to really upgrade our schools?
Affirmative action, that's what you're describing. It would require that.
I understand. Affirmative action.
If we can have affirmative action with all the gas stations and hotels and the Asians and the Islamics, because that's what affirmative action is turned to now. Everybody other than black folk.
That is a topic for another day, and we are out of time right now, but we do look forward to having another discussion with you and the ins and outs of affirmative action that was once the law of the land. We've had quite an enlightening conversation with Mr. Terry Thomas. Thank you so very much for joining us. This has been Potpourri. We look forward to seeing you next time.